Welcome to Clapback Get the Facts podcast, where we are providing you with the information you need to know about what's politically impacting Black women across the country. In a world filled with mis and disinformation, we provide you with the real. If you're a Black woman, representing Black women, or in the community with Black women, we are here to clap back and give you the facts. Thank you for joining episode 10, Can the President Get Away with Treason? Breaking down the SCOTUS ruling on decision on immunity. We will be sharing the facts and dropping gems. So let's get ready to clap back, get the facts.
Hello. Welcome back to Clapback Get the Facts podcast. My name is Holly Holiday. I am the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. Thank you for joining us. We are here with episode 10, Can the President Get Away with Treason or Murder? Breaking down the Supreme Court decision on immunity. You know, I cannot have these conversations by myself. I need to bring up the crew. Let's start with our legal expert and Southern maven, Chantel Mullen. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, Holly. I don't know what it is about this mute button tonight.
Listen, what's happening?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about. We can't do it. We gotta have all the different perspectives. And so we cannot hold conversation without our other sister, Simone Henderson, holding it down. Hey, Diva. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, y'all. Hey.
Well, first and foremost, before we get into the topic, we got to have a little bit of a celebration. Y'all, we made it to double digits. Can we say yay for 10? DS, hello. We done did it. Hey, the party is happening. All right. I am so excited to be in 10, episode 10. It's exciting and ready to go. And we are going to be talking about a very serious question. I never thought we would be here. I'll be honest. You know, I went to law school a little bit ago. In studying the law, I'm a third generation lawyer. I've been engaged in around the law my entire life, my family, going back. And there are some core principles that I honestly, even though I know everything is at stake, I never thought that we would be challenging something as basic as immunity, which is fundamental to our checks and balances. So let's get into it. On July 1st, merely 4 days ago, the Supreme Court decided that former presidents of the United States are provided immunity from prosecution over official acts. Now, there is some question about what's an official act and what counts and doesn't count. Political and election experts have said that this ruling poses a risk to democracy. The reason that it poses a risk is because what we have is a system of government that is based on a very fundamental system of checks and balances. I feel like we need the Schoolhouse Rock video to remind us about how the Congress is checking, that the Supreme Court checks the Congress, that the Congress checks the president, that the president checks and has veto power over legislation, with an opportunity for the people to come back and overturn if necessary. That very delicate power balance is fundamental. But apparently the Supreme Court says no. So following our first presidential debate, which we recently talked about, SCOTUS decided to make news by ruling, and there are some other rulings that we will deal with in future episodes. But this one, crazy. And, I think that we see that this is probably even more dangerous than overturning Roe v. Wade, I would say. It really sets a precedent that not only greatly expands the power of presidential offices, but frankly, and most importantly, it really diminishes the accountability that we have over presidents. So I want to break some stuff down. I want to thank Simone for helping put all these things together for us today. So we got 6 Supreme Court judges. There are 9. All of them are appointed by Republican presidents. So that's something to note. I'm sure we'll talk about that. And they have agreed that if the president takes any action where the power is granted to him through the Constitution, that he can't be prosecuted, which means if he commits treason by, I don't know, riling up a group of insurrectionists to storm the Capitol and prevent the peaceful transfer of power, some might consider that to be treasonous. Apparently, the Supreme Court says maybe not. Maybe the president has immunity from that. That it additionally grants the president presumptive immunity, which means that you now, instead of just let me finish the sentence, presumptive immunity from criminal prosecution for presidential acts within the outer perimeter of the official responsibility, which means that now, instead of you being able to simply bring criminal charges against the president for the sake of a crime has been committed and you have a prima facie case to argue, you first have to overcome the barrier that there is not a presumption of immunity by proving that the criminal act on which you seek to prosecute is outside the perimeter of the official responsibility. So, we already see what's happening when we're just trying to do straight prosecutions. Now we've added this extra layer. And then finally, this idea around evidence, which says that if prosecuted for an act carried out as part of his personal capacity, that the prosecution can't even refer or bring into evidence actions that they may have taken as president. Oh, Jesus. Breathe deep, sisters with me. Breathe deep, sisters with me. And so I think that, I think critics rightly say that it will be difficult to differentiate between actions taken by a president in their personal capacity versus their official capacity. I think we don't have clear definitions or bright line rules around that. It's not really clear from the opinion what those could be. And I think that, frankly, I don't think the lower courts are even positioned to begin to start to answer this question. And it's unlikely that the Supreme Court will provide any clarity. And there's a reason for that, because let's face it, this is not a normal job. You do not get to clock out at 5 o'clock and be like, woohoo, I'm on my personal time. You are, and Lord knows the press is not going to let you have that. So you don't get off time. So that's just crazy anyway. And then finally, I'll just say, where now lies the accountability? At what point do we have a mechanism that stops presidents from abuse of power, that has a sense of restraint, that enables people to have a right of refusal for being asked to do unjust acts? And then I'll just note for the record that this clearly protects only one person, and that's the president. It does not protect the staff, the advisors, the consultants, and the many people who are also being held accountable for these acts, a la Rudy Giuliani, who was disbarred today or a couple days ago. So, clearly this is a very narrow and special case, but very divisive. Chantel, legal expert, maven of all things legal, always keeping it real with us. Let's start with this conversation about what impact does this decision have? What can we expect different?
Well, as you were reading that, I was looking at the SCOTUS blog when it dropped, and looking at those reactions. Shout out to SCOTUS blog, who does an excellent job helping the rest of us lawyers get through those decisions. And I was reading the decision, and I got such a headache. It's 119 pages.
Yeah.
So if folks are out here telling
a little light read for you.
Yeah, if folks are telling you that they digested that fast, they lying.
Yeah.
That's the first part. But here's my takeaway from it, because I believe in being real world about stuff.
Yes, you do, and we appreciate that.
The way that the Supreme Court, a la John Roberts and his posse,
and the posse,
wrote this, I almost felt like they looked at all of the cases that Trump has, and they found ways to undermine and pick apart every one of them.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
So that was my first take.
Okay.
My second take is that they intentionally made this convoluted by not drawing some bright line rules and not clarifying some points, and that when we have cases kicked back to these judges, and the judges go, well, this is an official act, or this is an unofficial act, the Supreme Court can pick and choose and say, not like that.
Right.
Not that one.
Right.
Not that one. And I feel like they've left this space where they say, oh, we left some stuff for you to really do. But no, they really didn't. It's gamesmanship. Because anytime a court makes a decision that it is not, they're going to come back and say it is. Or they'll find a way to undermine the evidence that creates all of that. So, one of the things that I did in a former life was around discipline. So the one thing that I understand about people who behave badly is, one, they don't follow the rules. Also, they're very creative thinkers. One of the things I understand about people behaving badly is they're also very creative thinkers. So there's stuff that we haven't thought about that they will think about. And, normally you'll have people saying, hey, that's illegal. You can't do that. Now you're not going to have people saying that, because anything that basically this person can think up and do on their job, they get immunity for. That's insanity. That's literally insanity. And so, this John Roberts has burnt down a whole lot of things. So I'm not surprised he would burn this down. He's an arsonist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's burnt down voting rights, affirmative action, Roe, Chevron. He's burned it all down. And I'm not surprised, given his history.
I have to admit, I was surprised.
I'm not.
What impact are you concerned about, Simone?
I think this decision is wildly irresponsible and inappropriate and extremely dangerous. I think building on what Chantel just said about people who break the rules are creative. I think in this being built around Trump, we see he is a very creative criminal, a very creative felon who has tried and has built an entire career on trying to get around the rules, break the rules for his benefit. And we have just given more power and an additional tool for him to do so. And so, exactly, we sat back and we let 6 judges appointed by all Republicans now make an easier pathway to make the presidency a dictatorship for someone that we already saw when he came into office in 2016. How much did he undo about what were supposed to be, what were institutional functions that had existed across decades of presidencies? He undid because they didn't favor him and the way that he wanted to break the rules. And so in this culture that he stokes, with not only him, but a candidate similar to him, the implications of what they could create. And we talked about who this is dangerous for, or who it doesn't protect, and the staff and whatnot. This by no means protects the American people. This by no means protects democracy or any of the sort. This is absolutely a rollback in fundamental perception of America and how it functions.
Yeah. That's right. I think that's right. And I think that also, it dawns on me that as both you and Chantel were talking, I was struck again by how fundamentally what's really happening is that we have what Republicans say when they are in hearings on these justices, that they don't want an activist court, that they want people that are going to be balanced and measured and not seeking to do anything that is going to create new law, but really make decisions about, how we are interpreting existing law. And there is no question that although they are making that claim, that is not where we are. And I am very concerned that, the court the Supreme Court has been one of the few places where we actually, while I may not have always agreed with every decision, that's certainly true, but the Supreme Court has been a place where prior to some of these Trump appointees, I did not feel like it was a partisan activity. Yes, I did feel like there were certain conservative values at play at times, but from a partisan lens that was intentionally set up to empower or dispower one political party over the other, that was not ever a part of the analysis when we would think about how justices were making decisions. And the reality is now it is. And then I would say, we see some of the pundits like a J.D. Vance, who is under consideration for being Trump's vice president. I know you have something to say about that. But he makes these, he pulls out these things of what past presidents have done, like Biden bombing Yemen and other things like that. And I just think that the difference is that there are other guidance that make those activities not a crime. For one, they're done in coordination with Congress. So they're not like purely acts of a single person within the administration that's unilaterally making decisions, but these things are done certainly with the advice and usually with the consent of Congress. So of course, no one is prosecuting when you have basically included, all of the branches of government per se. So I think that we also, this is, I think, part of the information piece, is that we hear these examples and we go, yeah, of course not. But those examples are actually not similar to the kinds of things that we're facing with Trump. And here's the truth. No former president before Trump, not a single one. We've been through 46 now. Not a single one of the 46, none of them people, none of them men have ever been indicted for anything related to being president, because none of them have engaged in activities that are clearly self-serving, to your point, Simone, not about the country and outside of the consent or advice of Congress. It's crazy. Oh, Jesus, my head hurts just thinking about it, to be honest with you. So, listen, we're here for the sisterhood at the end of the day. And so I have to ask my esteemed colleagues on this call, About reactions. What are people saying? How are they feeling about it? What are we hearing? What impact does this have? What reactions are others having to this decision?
I'll start at the top.
Go ahead.
We'll start with who had the most to lose in this case. Donald Trump saw this and praised it. He said, "Big win for the Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American." Now, we know when Trump gets to tweeting and he's happy about something, it's usually not good. It's not good for democracy or the Constitution, whatever he has at play.
I wonder if he can spell Constitution. Anyway,
I don't think so either. I don't.
I'm sorry. That was an aside. I
don't
tell you, Simone, keep us on the high road, girl. I'm headed to the low road.
Look, we suppose when they go low, we go high. I don't know if we can do that today. But I think President Biden, his reaction out of the Oval Office, had it right. He said that no one is above the law, and that what this really boils down to, and what we have to be worried about, is that now essentially we are at the mercy of the judgment of the president, of what they want that day, of what they decide is an official course of action. And what does that mean for the people? What are the limitations of that? And that's been the alignment with the reactions that I've seen, is that this has just opened up such a slippery slope that this is no longer, and once again, President Biden also mentioned that essentially this office is no longer constrained by law. Like we are operating in a capacity I don't think we've ever seen. I think any of the checks and balances that are in place have been greatly diminished. And that is what I think most people are speaking to, is how do you now check and what are the balances for the executive branch when you've just essentially given the president free will to do what they want, as long as they label it as official and they are creative about the way that they build that case about it being an official act.
Yeah. Chantel, your thoughts. What reactions are you hearing?
People are nervous. And here's the other thing. People heard what Trump said on the debate stage, and then this coming along with it. They've also heard a number of the clips where he has been at rallies and he's promising retribution and, I'm going to arrest these people. These are the same folks that chanted lock her up for 4 years. And the lock them up list just keeps getting longer, although all the folks convicted are on their side. He got a whole passel of folks who have been convicted that have gone to jail, but everybody else is the criminal.
Yeah.
And so I think people are rightfully scared. They don't know what to do. And, I think, honestly, just hearing the message "go vote" is not enough. We've got to deal with concerns. We've got to explain this to people. People have to know that while this may not impact you today, it may impact you down the line. And so, because I say this to folks, and I've started saying this to folks, that man is truly crazy. And I don't mean it in a mentally ill situation.
Right.
He is filled with hate, and he is a petty and vengeful spirit. And if he gets unfettered power, we saw what he did when he had people giving him limitations. The people that he proposes to put in place, we are I used the Justice League and the Legion of Doom as my example, This is just like turning over everything to the Legion of Doom, to Lex. Not even, he ain't as smart as Lex Luthor, but turning it over to Lex Luthor and the Legion of Doom. Or as somebody posted last night, this is like turning it over to Scar in The Lion King, Scar and the hyenas. And so that's what this is like. And so seriously, people need to think, you know, they're petty enough to go read on your social media pages. They've already started threatening businesses. They ain't even in office and they're threatening businesses. So work somewhere. Will they? Because who's going to stop them? And if he's saying I'm doing it in my official capacity, who's going to stop him? There is no police. There is nobody. There is nobody in his administration who will stop him.
Yeah.
So, you know, we set ourselves up, but we need to explain this to people because they may just say, and, you know, I hear people downplaying it. I don't think, because everybody always thinks somebody's coming to the rescue. Nobody's coming to the rescue, y'all. We have to do this.
Yeah.
We have got to do this. There is nobody coming. If we let these folks in power, they will never relinquish it. They've been lying about it for 4 years. They didn't want to relinquish it the first time. They hadn't figured out how to how to keep it. But this time I think they figured it out. And if you think they playing, they're not.
Yeah. 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 You know, I think this invokes also what we are coming to understand about the Project 2025, which has been part of a document that has chartered the conservative agenda for several years now. I'm not going to say, I don't know exactly when it came into play, but certainly it didn't just pop up. We're seeing real tenets of this. And I think this is another one of those, because clearly what they lay out when they talk about the White House office, when they talk about the executive office of the president specifically, it is to make the president, they don't use this word, but the words that they use add up to this, omnipotent, to make the president so that they can do things without having to go through a process, even through agencies, right? I mean, this is a group of people who are not trying to not only not deal with Congress and not respect that Congress should have a role in influencing and advising on some of these decisions, but that frankly, neither should the federal agencies, neither should that group of experts, that we should instead shift the power out of agencies and into these group of super advisors that are just advising on different things. And when the president doesn't have an accountability or responsibility to anything else, it strengthens his ability to do this. So these things are all connected. The other thing that dawns on me is that, you know, again, as Black people, where have we seen this idea of immunity before? It's with the police. It didn't serve us then, and it's not serving us now. I mean, frankly, I think the whole concept of immunity, qualified or presumptive or whatever, has no place in our legal system. That everyone should be, now I'm not saying that certain positions shouldn't have protection. Like, for instance, should we pay for their attorneys? Maybe we should. Maybe they should have legal representation, but should they be held accountable? That's also true. And I think any place where we are, you know, this ain't RuPaul's Drag Race and you shouldn't have to have immunity to go on to the next act. You should be held accountable to each and every act. And there are certain positions, like being president of the United States, like being an armed law enforcement officer, that is capable of taking another human life, that does take other human lives in the course of your duties, you should be held responsible for those decisions. And you should not get a pass if you are put in situations where you are undertrained, where you are making poor judgment. Your poor judgment should not be without accountability, because honestly, folks, what the hell do we think accountability is in the first damn place? So I just think about that, and I say, I can think of really no circumstances where immunity, whether it be presumptive or qualified or in any level, has ever benefited Black people. We gave immunity to those slave owners who beat, sold, raped, pillaged, and otherwise degraded us, ripping us from our homelands. They were never prosecuted. That's what immunity looks like for Black people. And so for me, it's a hard pass. And honestly, while I do not subscribe to the concept of originalism, I can't even imagine, based on the structure that the founding fathers put in place, that they would ever imagine something like this. And it's interesting because a lot of the justification for their actions goes back to this concept of originalism. Ain't no originalism in this damn opinion, because
not even a little bit.
That was outside the pocket. So, when they are even going outside of their tried and true originalism, it's way out of bounds.
Girl, they don't even believe in originalism.
Whatever fits them for the moment is what works for them.
Right. They got situationalism. Whatever the situation is, that's the legal theory that they come up with to get to the outcome that they need. They are situational hypocrites.
Yeah.
They are situationalism.
Yeah.
Is their real legal theory. They don't, that originalism is some foolishness. And how I know they don't believe in that originalism is because on that court, there are women and a Black man. If they believed in originalism, those folks couldn't vote in the Constitution.
And there it is. Well, listen, we cannot leave this discussion without giving the people something. So what can Americans do? Listen, let's be honest. What can Black women do? What should Black women be doing in this moment? We always end our conversations on this discussion point. What action could we take? Should we be taking? Chantel, give us some guidance here.
Well, I hate to say vote, but that's the floor. But the feeling is that Black women should be running for office.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We got to get in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we've got to support the people who are out there, because politics is going to happen. Government is happening. Either we're serving or someone else is serving, and we need people to serve our interest, to be concerned about what concerns us. And so we need folks voting, but we need folks running.
Absolutely. Simone, your thoughts. What should we be doing? What does this help? How does this help us? What should Black women be thinking about here?
The thing that comes to mind is strap your boots up and strap them up high, because this ish is going to get deep. That this is just, I can't say just the beginning, but I don't think we can emphasize enough where this all can go. And echoing on Chantel's point, voting. We talk about these 6 justices and how many of them were appointed by Trump. 3 of them. And if he had not been in office, this court demographic would look different. We wouldn't have these decisions. And so what I can just say is not only voting, but remembering to connect the dots of those who we're in community with. When they say my vote doesn't have power, and they say, well, why isn't the president doing something because they're currently in office? We got to think presidents also have to act within the decisions that have been made by previous administrations, like who they've appointed to courts and decisions that they make and the long-term impact that they have. So all I can say is strap the boots up, vote, and then continue to connect the dots to those that are around them.
Yeah. I think this also, and we should do a whole show about court reform. I have very mixed opinions about most of the court reforms proposed because I think many of them are reactionary, but I will note that Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman out of New Jersey and Hank Johnson out of your home state of Georgia have both been floating a number of refloating a number of court reforms, including things like expanding the court to include up to 13 justices, looking at term limits, and passing a binding code of ethics. Now, of those three, I have to tell you, I'm kind of on the fence with most of them. I feel like a lot of it is very reactionary to this very partisan moment. And I wonder if some of those reforms don't lean into partisanship. But the one that I think we should really take a strong look at is this idea of a binding code of ethics. There are codes of ethics that the Supreme Court is held accountable to. Well, let me back that up.
Yeah, because they're not
the Supreme Court justices do sign a code of ethics in which they agree to be bound to. However, it is not really clear on the accountability of those ethics and what happens. We know that Congress has a role here, and I think that we really do need to look at and think about how we're holding the court accountable, not based on what they're deciding, but their ethics. Because I think the other problem that comes up in decisions like this is that many of these justices, as we have seen in the news, are frankly compromised. We've seen stories around Alito being compromised, as well as Justice Thomas, and they are two of the 6 votes that push this over the edge. And it does make you think about the level of influence, especially partisan influence, that they're subject to. So I think we have to think about that for sure.
Well, I mean, honestly, Holly, if they were at any other court level, there would be things that would be happening because there are codes of ethics. There are cases they would have been mandated to recuse from. There are things that they would have been required to report and refuse.
Yeah.
And then if this behavior continued, there would have been an action. If you have an ethics code that doesn't have an accountability portion, you don't have an ethics code. And so they don't have an ethics code. Mm-hmm. And so, I do think expanding the court is reactionary. However, I also think it is the right thing to do. I think they actually should take away some of this. How to take away some of the partisanship of it is we now have 13 circuits. As we bring on a new circuit, we should bring on a new Supreme Court judge. And that way you take out the partisanship of it because you're deciding to divide up cases so that you get a new circuit and then you get a new justice. We have more judges. We have more circuits than we have judges. With the pushback of Chevron, they're going to have more cases. Now, they may not take those cases, but they're going to be more cases because they've again muddled a process. And so they've just been simultaneously tearing up things. And as you tear up stuff, people file lawsuits to see where the law really is because they're not clear in anything that they do. And I think that that's part of their intent is to not be clear.
So I think we got a lot more we can discuss on the court reform. Sounds like that's a clapback in and of itself. And I think we would have a lively discussion. We might even think about bringing on someone who is an expert or who has some other thoughts around court reform. There are many other kinds of court reform. I think, as we close out this discussion, I would say what is clear is, and I'm going to go back to what Simone shared from President Biden. No person, no one is above the law or should be above the law. And even though in practice we see people operate as though they are above the law, we should not quietly allow that to continue. And we should use every mechanism in our arsenal in order to tamp that down. And the fact that it is happening in practice doesn't mean that we should cede the legal or moral ground on this. And I think that if I were to issue a call to action today, it would be for Black women to clap back against the Supreme Court ruling and to amplify their belief that no one is above the law, that this is important to not only denounce, but to say that, you know, even though we may see instances in practice where folks appear to be above the law, this is an important point that we refuse to cede, and that we will, and that we want our moral and legal mechanisms to help to guide and change what is our practices. We got a lot to do. We got a lot of work to do. And I think we end where we always seem to begin. And that is, we have choices, and those choices are at the ballot box. And I'm hoping that this is yet another thing that you recognize and connect to the importance of each and every Black woman and every person that they have in their network is out and voting. That's what I got today, y'all. I think we've done a good job of laying this out. We've done another long one. I mean, maybe we're just a 45-minute podcast now. I don't know. But we're going to keep it rolling. We will be back next week with more Clapback, Get the Facts. We want to thank you for joining us. Please, please, please help us get our numbers up. You can find us wherever you're happening to be listening to us now. But also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get those notifications so you know each and every time we drop a new episode. We got some hot stuff coming up. The Republican convention is coming up. The Democratic convention is coming up. We know there's going to be content upon content upon content coming out. And guess what, y'all? The Supreme Court ain't done. They still issuing decisions. And so we probably will have more to say about stuff that they're doing. You don't want to miss any of it. You want to make sure that you are clued in to what Black women are talking about, thinking about, and of course, all of our fabulous calls to action, because I just came off a vacation. I'm going to tell you, the one takeaway that I have from this Supreme Court, as well as the debate that happened last week, is, sisters, we got work to do. Mm-hmm. We got work to do. All right. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us here on Clapback Get the Facts podcast. We hope that you're leaving feeling more informed and ready to provide others with the facts. We would love to hear your biggest takeaways from this episode, so post the show on your Instagram story and tag us at Sisters Lead. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, please leave a review so others can get some sense of the facts that we're providing. Finally, if you would like to learn more about local resources and other projects we're working on, go to sistersleadsistersvote.org.